The FA Cup is back, and we're going to start with our big game, Bournemouth against City. They beat you at Bournemouth this season when Semenyo played unbelievably well. City's only chance at a trophy, which feels really weird because at this point in the season, in the last however many years, you've basically been in with every trophy. Where are you right now as a Man City fan?
I mean, I'm looking at the last results in the last 10, 4 wins, 5 losses and a draw. Like, it has literally been all over the place and you don't really know what you're going to get. Go and beat Newcastle really comfortably 4-1 and you're thinking, oh, okay, everything's turning. And then the next week we lose 3-1, I think it was. It's like, you just don't really understand what's going on with the team at the moment. I think the fact that it's our only remaining competition that we can win, I would hope would give some drive to the players, because I think we've spoken about it. And there are so many factors of why City have been poor this year. Obviously, losing Roger was huge. There's the psychological tiredness of competing every single year for the last 6, 7 years. There's the tiredness physically of competing in more games than anyone else in Europe. Obviously, that is going to have a huge impact on the players. But we've said a lot. The psychological drop-off has been absolutely enormous from City. So many times. We've lost 9 games in the Premier League. I think 8 of the 9 that City have lost, they've gone 1-0 down and then just completely capitulated. And I don't really understand why that's happening. So you look at this game and you think, okay, well, City have got a good chance. Because realistically, I think Bournemouth are probably the best team left in there, apart from Forest. But hopefully City, if they do win, can get a little bit lucky and only meet them in the final. But you look at this and you think, this is a team who are natural born winners. They should know how to win. So this is a game that they should put all their emphasis on. But I'm just not that confident on it. I just don't know why we've seen what we've seen from City over the last couple of months. It looks like it's going to be good. And there's that spark of really good play, particularly, I was mentioning before, particularly when we go very, very fast and you have Doku on one side, Savini on one side, Marmoush in the middle and Haaland ahead of that. It looks like that's the way forward. But then again, they go 1-0 down and they just completely lose composure. And I think Bournemouth are not a team that you want to play against. The fact that we already lost to them at Bournemouth 2-1 in the league, I think if Bournemouth go full throttle and they score a goal early, I think it's going to be really difficult again for City.
So you've been quite a strange watch this season. It is, like you said, 4 wins, 5 losses, 1 draw. But even the games you've won, bar maybe one of them, I felt like the other team's always alive in the game. And I think Bournemouth are the sort of team that can take advantage of these situations. They haven't won in the last 5, but they have sort of been like the story of the season, top manager, new players that people are suddenly scouting and looking at. Do you think this is almost like a perfect scenario for Bournemouth where they go, City are a bit down, we're at home, it's the FA Cup?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a perfect situation. I think they'd rather have drawn somebody else rather than Man City. If you look at the calibre of teams after the competition, Fulham, Palace, Brighton, Forest, Preston.
This is where I'd say, bar Preston, Man City this season, I think you probably agree with this, you don't mind taking them on in games.
Yeah.
Whereas Brighton, good side, you almost know what you're going to get. With City, they're I don't know what the word is, the sort of the chanciness of whatever they turn up with. That's a fake word. But you can get away with that, I think, this season.
Yeah, they've not been at their best. This season, though, with City is akin to Pep's final season at Barcelona in 2012, where the drop-off wasn't as massive, but by their lofty standards, they were off it in the league. Jose Mourinho ran them out of town, but they did win the Copa del Rey that year, and everyone knew it was Pep's last year. This is not Pep's last year, but the players found something within them to still win a cup competition. And like you mentioned, Kim, these are players that won everything, and so you think they still have it within them to go and perform in a cup competition that's very open. And as a Chelsea fan, it's the first time in a long time they get to the latter stages of the FA Cup where Chelsea are not in it, and I'm not rooting for City because normally United are still in it, Liverpool's still in it, Arsenal's still in it. But this is the first time where City are the big bad boys in the competition where most neutrals are rooting for them to lose. And I think they can use that as motivation. When you watch the broadcast on the weekend, all the narrative is going to be surrounding Bournemouth and how they can potentially upset Man City because everyone wants to see an underdog win this FA Cup. I think the City players that have got the dog in them still can use that as motivation and find that greatness within them. Because I said it when you came up against Real Madrid. I said these City players have still got greatness within them. We didn't see it in that tie. I think we'll see it on the weekend. I think City will beat Bournemouth.
The problem is there's just a vulnerability. There's a massive vulnerability within the team now, and some of them still are the players that they were, and we're just not seeing that. And some of them just aren't. And you look at that defence, for example, there's no reason on paper why any of those defenders should have performed like they have this season. Okay, John Stones has been injured. I think John Stones is the man who stitches everything together for City. I think when Rodgers not there, John Stones is the most important. You just can't rely on him because he's injury prone all the time. Ruben Diaz, again, been injured. But at some stage, in pretty much every single game, there has been a centre-back pairing of two of Diaz, Stones, Akanji, Ake, or Gvardiol. Those 5 players have shown that they are more than good enough to play at the top level. Those 5 players won a treble. Let's not forget that. So it doesn't make sense to me why they've been so poor this year. No matter what combination of them, it's been so easy to get at them. And of course, they're under more pressure because Rodri's not there. But you come up against a Bournemouth team who are fast-flowing in attack. They've got killers up front. Justin Kluivert, I don't know where that's come from, but he's been absolutely exceptional. And there's no solidity in that defence for me. And I think I've said it till I'm blue in the face. I'm not going to cuss out Edison again. But the fact is, once they beat that defence, there's also no security behind it either. And I think this type of team are not the type of team you want to play against. You want to play against a team who is maybe more reliant on lumping balls into the box. Then City can maybe get the better of them. But a fast-flowing team on the transition is exactly how we've been burnt every single time this season.
The other issue that City have, obviously, you've spoken about the defence, and the reason I'm not asking you about it is because just go back and watch any of the Manchester City Football Forecast episodes. We've spoken about this defence over and over and over again. But on the flip side, we haven't really spoken about the forwards. Haaland's been, I would say, like, the purple patch. Start of the season, wasn't he like 10-5 or something? And then he slowed down a lot. Doku, we're still waiting for. Grealish hasn't quite arrived to the party. Marmoush has been bright, but he's obviously a new signing. Savino's been bright, I would say, but final product not really there. But the one man that we've sort of been waiting on, and are still waiting on, is Phil Foden.
You're going to be waiting for a long time, brother. You're going to be waiting for a long time. I think Phil Foden is an incredible footballer. He's fantastic. He is an example of what the CFA have done. And the prime example of it in terms of come through the academy playing a certain type of football that kind of in the image of Pep Guardiola. But when you think about the lofty ambitions that we had for Phil Foden, we were calling him the Stockport Iniesta. I think his ceiling is more Bernardo Silva. I think he is an incredible complementary piece, but he will not ever be that guy. He will never be the go-to man. Last season, he won PFA Player of the Year. He was incredible, part of the City team that won the league. But it was the City team that also had other performers. But I think when the chips are down, I don't think you can rely on Phil Foden to be that guy. We've seen it this season in the Man City shirt. We've seen it in England shirt over the last 3 or 4 years. I think eye-test-wise, he's one of the most talented footballers this country's ever produced. But in terms of that je ne sais quoi, the extra 1 or 2% that you need to become that top player, the Iniestas that we thought he was going to turn into, I don't think he's got that in the locker. He can become a Bernardo Silva. He might be already past that level in terms of ability, but I just don't know if you can rely on Phil Foden to be that franchise player.
I think talking of relying on Phil Foden is really, really unfair. I mean, the squad that we have at the moment is no different from the squad we had last year. What was different was the fact that Phil Foden scored 19 goals and got 8 assists. In the last game of the season, City need to win that game against West Ham. Within 2 minutes, he picks it up, beats 3 players, scores. We're 1-0 down to United at the Etihad. Phil Foden scores 2 goals from a similar range. Same at the Bernabeu, he scores a ridiculous goal to make it 3-0. He's done all of that, and he's done that throughout his career. That 2021 Champions League final that City got to against Chelsea, they only got there because of Phil Foden. He scored unbelievable goals against PSG and Borussia Dortmund. He is that guy. He's just really struggling this year. And an article came out saying how affected he was by the Euros. And that must be difficult, right? And the problem with Phil Foden is that he's played for Manchester City, pretty much played for Pep Guardiola his entire life. So you're expected then to perform under a Gareth Southgate in a position that you might not be particularly accustomed to when you're competing with Jude Bellingham, who's probably the best in the world at that position. That's obviously something which isn't going to happen. And I think that obviously must have knocked his confidence. The tiredness from the Euros, from playing all those games, must have knocked him as well physically. And he obviously hasn't been that guy this season. He just hasn't. And maybe there is some coincidence with the fact that Kevin De Bruyne hasn't been alongside him, but he wasn't for large parts of last season either. I think players should be allowed to have one seriously bad dip in form, which is what this is. Let's not understate it. He has been absolutely awful this year, like genuinely terrible. One of our worst attackers this year. But let's not forget that he pretty much single-handedly won us a Premier League last year. So to say he's not that guy is harsh.
When I say that guy, and you brought up that guy, you compared him to Jude Bellingham, you said obviously he's not on that level. That's what we expected. We expected Phil Foden to be on that level, and he's not. And so that's why I think maybe not disappointment, but maybe the reset of expectations of Phil Foden comes from, because when you talk about Ballon d'Or contention, when you talk about being that guy and you say that obviously Phil Foden is not on the Bellingham level, I'm sorry, but I thought that when he was coming through, he would be on that level.
But I think scoring 19 goals and 8 assists from right wing in the Premier League and winning Premier League Player of the Year, is that not more impressive than what Jude Bellingham has done? Jude Bellingham won a Champions League because he was part of a system which always wins the Champions League.
As a City fan, is Foden on Bellingham's level?
I think he could be. I don't think he's miles off it, and I think he's had individual seasons which are arguably better than an individual season Jude Bellingham has had. Jude Bellingham has something more. Yeah. He can play in different positions. He's more consistent. He's stronger. He's physically better than Phil Foden. But I wouldn't say he's technically better, and I actually wouldn't say that he has individually achieved as much as Phil Foden has. He probably will, but I don't think he's at that level yet.
I think the problem, like football fans have, England fans in particular have with Foden is, he can't play as a 10 because Jude's better than him. He can't play off the right because Saka's better than him in them positions. He can't play off the left because I don't think he's that effective out there. And so then you go, so where can he play?
But it's fine for him to not play for England. We don't need him to play for England. I'm a Man City fan.
Yeah, but I'm saying, if we're saying he's that guy, like we want him to be that guy, but he can't get into the England team because he's not better than the guys in his position, then how can he be the guy?
But there have been lots of that guys. Paul Scholes was that guy. He didn't play that many times.
But Paul Scholes was not that guy, though.
Yeah.
But he was purported to be that guy. Everyone says he's one of the best midfielders of all time.
He's a good complimentary piece. That guy is Wayne Rooney. You know what I mean? That like when I'm talking about that guy, I'm talking about a guy that can walk into any team in the world and start for them. And that's what I thought Phil Foden would be.
But we talked about Trent in another video, who you described as that guy. He never plays for England.
Yeah.
There are 3 or 4 right backs who are ahead of him for England.
Yeah.
So you can't say that one is that guy for the same reason that the other one isn't.
Okay, but Trent is that guy for a right back, a position that I'm sorry is not as influential and important as the attacking positions. Trent will never go and win a Ballon d'Or. We thought that Phil Foden would go and win Ballon d'Ors, and I don't think it's an individual award that I don't really care about. But when we're talking about greatness, that's where I thought Phil Foden would ascend to, and I just don't think that's within his wheelhouse. From what I've seen, and again, maybe his issue is playing under Pep Guardiola for so many years that he's only played one style of football. But I expected him to kick on a lot more than he has.
But I guess just quickly, just on the Ballon d'Or point, I think, Bernardo Silva had a pathetic penalty against Real Madrid, and that's why City went into the semi-finals last year, of which probably they would have won because they were better than any other team there. If City win the Champions League last year, Phil Foden wins the Ballon d'Or.
Don't think Rodri wins it?
No, I think Phil Foden wins it because he gets Premier League Player of the Year. He scored so many goals, and he's an attacking player, which usually the attacking player who wins the Champions League is favoured. I think Phil Foden wins it over Rodri. I think he's very, very close. I think he's had a really poor season, but he's still quite young for a man who's won 7 Premier League titles, won a treble, won the Champions League. I just think that we're so quick because there's so much rivalry in football, and it's like, Saka's better than Foden, Jude's better than Foden, Salah's better than Foden, whatever. Everyone always wants to compare. Yeah. When a player has a bad season like this, it's like everyone wants to jump on his back. But if you're thinking about who Phil Foden is as a player, a very technical player who can play in tight spaces, he needs the players around him to be quick or good. That's just the type of player he is. There's lots of players like that. Iniesta wouldn't have thrived at Stoke. That's just a fact. Yeah. So when you've got this season, you've got Ilkay Gundogan who can't move, Bernardo Silva who won't move, De Bruyne who can't move either. It's very difficult for Foden to thrive unless he does what a Messi does, which he's just obviously not at that level, which is picking up the ball and running through people and scoring.
But then last season, it was the same players. And he was doing that.
But they were better, weren't they? They were better and they could link up better.
But that's what I mean, but it's a complimentary piece. When I'm talking about that guy, I mean players that transcend systems and managers. And unfortunately for Phil Foden, we've not seen him play well under any other manager apart from Pep Guardiola because he hadn't had the opportunity to do that. Because the only other manager he played under is Gareth Southgate. But when I look at a guy who is that guy, in my opinion, Jude Bellingham, it doesn't matter who the manager is. It doesn't matter what the team is. When you're watching a football match, your eyes are stuck on one player because he is that guy. And for Phil Foden, again, I think he might be the most talented player this country's ever produced. When it comes to those high leverage moments where I want to see Phil Foden be that guy, unfortunately, I haven't seen it. Maybe I'm missing something.
All right, lots of Foden chat. Let's actually get back to this game. What was your score predictions, Kim?
So tough. I can't even fathom it. I think if the City that turn up against Newcastle turn up, which they could, I think City win this, but I think it's going to be super, super tight, like 2-1.
Yeah, I'll go 2-1 City.
I think it'll be 2-1 Bournemouth. I'm backing a random team to win the FA Cup this year.